Don't you think it's time for the city of Savannah to have a tourism management plan? Let SCAB start paying its fair share. And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages. The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can. $5, $10, or $20 by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.
I appreciate our community. I appreciate our hotels.
The following show and broadcast is a production of Better Savannah, independent expenditure committee dedicated to better policy outcomes at the state and local level. The views, opinions, and statements made by the host or their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of Better Savannah.
Hi, my name is Roger Moss. I'm running for Chatham County School Board President. I believe every parent should have the right to choose where their child receives their education.
What's up, everybody? It's Chuck. It's Thursday, April 28th. We are competing against just a whirlwind of activity this evening, so delayed the broadcast just a little bit to be able to get the audience. Probably won't have a huge live audience for tonight because we're competing against the Republican primary governor's debate hosted by WTOC. Ending in just a few minutes, and we've got quite a spirited debate going on at City Council, debating the nightlife management in response to the recent downtown violence. All things that we hope to cover in future episodes. But if you're tuning in tonight, it's for part 3 of our series for the school board presidents titled The Third Rail. This is our interview with Roger Moss. And I'm just really excited to bring this together for you guys. Enjoy the interview. John, what's up, buddy?
Chuck, how are you? I'm well.
I'm doing very well. Very excited to see this. We're doing a pre-record on Monday, the 25th. But this will premiere publicly on Thursday, April 28th. It's episode 84, part 3 of our episode series titled The Third Rail, our interview series with candidates for the school board president of Chatham County Public Schools. And we're once again really excited to bring in a guest host, and it's going to be you, John, and our good friend, Dr. Sid Chapman, the former head of the Georgia Association. Again, really excited. How you guys doing today? Guest host.
Fine. How about you, sir?
The former head of the Georgia Association.
I was
again, really excited. How you guys doing today?
Quick move to get home in time to do this.
Oh, I know. You beat the traffic for us. I appreciate you beating that Metro Atlanta traffic home so that we could get this recording on the road. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest. It's Roger Moss. He is the third candidate we'll be interviewing for school board president of Chatham County Public Schools. And he'll be interviewed by Dr. Sid Chapman and John. So let's go ahead and bring him in.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us, Roger.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Sure. I just want to reiterate our appreciation to Sid Chapman for co-hosting this conversation with you. I am, deficient in comparison to Sid's knowledge of the subject. So, subject matter expert has been brought in, and I just want to point out that Mr. Chapman is currently the historian at the Clayton County School District. He is past president of the Georgia Association of Educators. And in 2018, he made the runoff for the superintendent of schools for the state of Georgia. So that certainly is reflective of many, many, many years of knowledge and will supplement my deficiencies. So we're excited to talk to you about our school system and about your candidacy. And to get it started, let me ask the first question here. Roger, we've asked the other two candidates in their discussions with us to tell us something they like about their opponent, something that they find commendable. So to be collegial and complete, what might you point out that you've noticed about Mr. Rhodes or Ms. Whiteley?
Okay, so I'll start with Mr. Rhodes. In fact, Mr. Rhodes and I were both speaking at a union meeting last week. And after the meeting, I walked up to him and I told him, I said, one thing I really admire about him is his heart. His heart is true. I believe he does have a passion for a true passion for our children. And I really admire that about him.
Excellent. And Ms. Whiteley?
Ms. Whiteley, she has done a lot for the schools that she's been involved with. She's been very involved. She's also very passionate. And both are great people. And I've enjoyed getting to know them, actually.
Well, that's excellent. Thanks for doing that. And I'm personally confident that no matter how this race slices out, there'll be a lot of heart in the next presidency, and hopefully a lot of great guidance and policy outcomes. So I'm going to steal a couple more quick questions, and then I'm going to turn to Sid, Mr. Chapman. Roger, is there, thus far, I've seen 2 live forums of yourself and the respective candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And thus far, is there a question that hasn't been asked that you wish had been asked?
Wow. No, I mean, I think both forums covered a lot, actually. No, I mean, I think they've covered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I got to ask you, the Savannah Morning News, Adam Van Brimmer editorial. We'll get the tough stuff done here at the front end. Uh, is there anything you'd like to say about that editorial? I mean, Van Burmer called you Mr. Charter Schools. Now, maybe that's an accolade. Maybe that's a dig. What did he mean by that? And what do you see in that?
I take it as a compliment, but I also take it as misrepresenting what I'm about. And what I'm about are quality schools for all of our children. And the only reason I was part of the group that started Savannah Classical, was hearing from parents. So the way I explain it, in Savannah, you have three types of parents. You have parents that have the wherewithal to send their kids to private school. Two, you have parents that have the political connections and the time to get their kids into the right school. And third, you have mostly poor, overworked parents who want a quality education for their kids, but their only choice is their neighborhood school. When I was part of the group that started Savannah Classical, and you can tell it by the way we did our marketing and everything, we were there for that third group. And we had heard from those parents. And what those parents wanted, they wanted a safe environment. They wanted their kids to be pushed a little bit more academically. And wanted their kids to have some of the advantages that they saw other people having that they didn't have. And that's what we did. And, you know, I told Adam this, in the world that I want Chatham County school system to be so great that I never have to get that call from a parent again. I am not here to start a bunch of charter schools. I'm here to make this school system so much better that we won't need charter schools. So that's my position.
Great. Thank you for that. Wasn't it nice to have unlimited time to answer a question?
Thank you very much.
I just knew that you'd breathe easy and appreciate this.
Oh, absolutely.
Before I pass it over to Sid for his first question, I got to think about what you just said with there's three types of parents. And I'm going to do that, Roger. But the thing that immediately came to my mind is your third group, the poor parents, to me, seems like 2/3 of your student body, because you got 2/3 of your students Title I qualified.
Yes.
And we're going to come back to that, but interesting distinction on your part on three types of parents. In a minute, I want to come back and ask you what that larger segment, the 2/3 pretends for the job as president. Sid, you're up, my friend.
Okay. Well, you hit on a lot of things there that we could start with.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Well, it's not evening yet. Good afternoon, Mr.
Good afternoon, Sid.
About you, and I've enjoyed these sessions. It's kind of good to sit on the other side of the chair sometimes to instead of being asked questions when you're running for office. I know how you feel, so you ought to try a statewide one sometime.
We're gonna wait on that.
So I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'll get a little bit more specific in a moment. But what is it, again, what is it that drives you, or what is your main motivation to do this, to run for the school board president, which is in that large spot in Savannah-Chatham, other than a district member, or what's your motivation?
The motivation is we need a reset. I believe we need a reset. I believe that we need to set a new culture. I've worked with children and parents for the last 15 years. All types of children, all types of parents. And the one thing that I have seen work over and over again, and this is regardless of class, this is regardless of race, is children thrive in a culture of excellence. And when I say a culture of excellence, children thrive when there are high expectations. And from what I have seen, expectations have zip codes. And I want to get away with that. I want the same expectations for kids at high poverty schools as we have for kids in middle class schools. I know I've seen these kids excel when they're expected to excel, and they're given the resources, of course, and given the teaching. They do, but they're giving the support. And I want more children to experience that. I'll give you an example. I co-founded the Savannah Children's Choir. And I had a young man, actually he was in 5th grade. He walked up to me at children's choir one day, and he's at one of the low performing schools. And he said, "Mr. Moss, the children at my school don't want to learn. And I so want to learn." And it broke my heart. Now, I was able to get him an audition, and he ended up going to Garrison. But there are a lot of those kids out there. And there are a lot of parents thinking the same thing. My motivation to run has all to do with children and parents. That's it. And giving them this opportunity to soar. So that's it.
Okay. Well, you hit on a lot of things that are very important to every educator. It's one of the things that we've said in NEA and GAE for years, that we should have a great public school for every child in every zip code, regardless of zip code, and have the resources. And very often we run into difficulty getting those resources because of the legislature, or for not funding public education as they should, or maybe the tax base is not, like it should be in some of the districts. And so Savannah seems to have a pretty good tax base, but it seems there's a lot of areas that are, it's 2/3 Title I, and there's a lot of private schools, I understand, and I've noticed in Chapman County. So there was some talk that maybe some of the businesses, or some like SCAD even, that doesn't, since it's a nonprofit, doesn't pay any business taxes. And if there were a for-profit, that'd be paying $30 million into the system. What do you think about that? Do you think the business in these schools that could be paying more should be paying more into the school system? Or do you think that's an answer?
No.
Those sorts?
No. Okay, so
that's a loaded question. I know.
That is a loaded question. I will tell you this. I believe the role of the board and the board president is, policy is part of it. Budget is part of it. I do not want to get into the weeds of wading into whether a certain business needs to pay more taxes or not. That is not our purview. My purview is making sure that our superintendent has set a plan that utilizes the funds that we have properly, that has requirement that we have that culture of excellence in all schools, that, we have the resources in all schools, that our teachers receive proper professional development, also encouragement, and of course, salaries. But, one thing that I've come to know, speaking with a lot of teachers, is pay is important, and I will never diminish that at all. But equally important is their ability to do what they love, and that is teach. And the only way they're able to do that is we have to take away the paperwork. We have to take away any environment where they feel that someone's always looking over their back. We have to encourage them. Go ahead.
I was just going to say you're leading into something that I want to talk about. The problem that I hear from most teachers and all the surveys say that it's not so much, pay is there, but it's kind of down the few rugs from the ladder. But this high stakes testing that you're constantly, in preparation for a test that, they're never really quite sure how much that's going to count against you or for you. And we all know that in a real world that principals and administrators look at those things because their job may fall on that as well, how well they're performing. So do you think there's too much emphasis on this high stakes testing business and that we've gotten it down a little bit, but how many of those do we really need?
Yes, I do believe there's too much testing. Unfortunately, we do have it. If I had a magic wand and I could say, the students only need to take one test a year, I do it. I don't have that magic wand. That is something that's out of the superintendent of, in Atlanta's purview. And, if he were right here, I'd tell him that. But until then, okay, so I'm a Libra, and I'm a really bad Libra. People get very frustrated because I'm all about balance. But somehow we need to find this balance where we're preparing kids for real life and preparing them for testing. Because unfortunately, the GMAS is one of many tests children will take over their lifetime. So in the meantime, what we need to concentrate on is giving them so most of the challenges we're seeing is in content mastery. And the best way to get content mastery is to make the subject applicable to their lives. Okay? We've got to teach kids the language. We've got to teach kids how to read, but not only read, but get the nugget of what's in that passage. And this is gonna be a long answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, I threw a lot at you, so go ahead.
But part of that, and this is why I believe I'm the person for this job. This has got to be an all hands on deck effort. I'll give the example. I gave it yesterday. I'm thinking went over people's heads. I give the example of when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was a great reader, but I was a great reader because my parents started at church. From the time I was 5, I was memorizing, chapters of the Bible. And in church, you have the part where, someone reads the scripture. At our church, it was always the kids. But the children were also praised for academic excellence. I had a conversation with the publisher of the newspaper a few years ago, and I told him this. I said, "This is what I want you to do. All of the stories about kids getting in trouble, I want you to put that on page 6. On page 1, I want you to put all of the stories of all the academic successes our kids are having. I want a whole page of honor roll. Want a whole page of projects, because what our community has to say to all of our kids is, what you do is important, and we will praise you and we will support you." So, unfortunately, we have testing.
Right. So, do you think? And I like that we should put a lot more emphasis on what is good and what students are doing well, and especially what teachers are doing well. What we hear so much criticism about teachers and classroom management, and of course, it's not just teachers. You've got a whole big thing with education in a county or in a system. Everything from the central office down to who keeps it clean and everything in between. Bus drivers, a lot of things to go on. So I don't want to say it takes a village, but I'll say it anyway. It's become such a cliche, but that's so true. But when it comes down right to the classroom, and I've seen this over the years just grow and grow and grow, and that's the size of a classroom. And we have students that excel more than other students, that have more abilities. No one wants to admit that. Everyone's got some strength, but that strength may be in vocational education, or it may be, and that was one of the worst things that we ever did, was take that out of schools. But now we're working that back into college and career and what have you. So I got 2 questions. So throw a couple of things.
Okay.
So I get started and I forget to ask.
Good.
I get on my soapbox. But what size do you think is the optimum for a class for one teacher? And I got the follow-up for that is, would you think that teacher should have a para no matter the grade?
Okay, so I'll start with primary and then elementary. In primary, for instance, kindergarten, I think the max is 18 kids. For first grade, 20. From 3rd through 5th grade, 22. For K through 2nd grade, I do believe there needs to be a para. As they get in the upper grades, and this is where the culture comes in. One thing that we can't lay blame for kids misbehaving and the chaos in the classroom. We can't lay that at the teacher's feet. Okay. I believe from day one, each school needs to establish what the culture of that school is, and everyone needs to understand it. And this is not being heavy-handed. This is, this is the conversation that we have with parents and we have with kids of, this is how we learn. One thing that the first charter school that I worked with, they do it with virtues.
every child in that school knows 8 virtues. As a result of them knowing 8 virtues, because kids have to have a language. You can't just say, you can't do that. The kids have a different language. The language is, what virtue are you not displaying? Then you have the conversation, and I've seen it. You have the conversation with the kid of, so how do we fix this? And the kid can name another virtue. And the reason I say virtue, that's the reason I don't believe in character education. Character, that's relative. Virtues are absolute. Honesty is honesty. Integrity is integrity. Perseverance is perseverance. We have these kids longer than a lot of parents spend their time with kids. So we really are shaping them. Don't we want to shape them to be great people and great citizens? Absolutely. And I believe the way you do that is from day one, communicating with parents. This is the culture we have in this school.
So when you say that, and that sounds, well, you never did tell me what size school classroom a high school should be, a middle school.
Oh, I'm sorry, for high school?
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Then I'll come back to what you were.
High school, I could go. I'd be very uncomfortable. Less than 30, more around 25 to 27. That's like maximum. But then also, I believe at high school, there should be a lot more opportunity for kids to do individual study.
Okay.
I've got a question, Sid. Can I jump in?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the interruption. Roger, I'm really liking your math on class sizes. Okay. It's something that in my limited, foray into this, seems like the smart thing to do. My question to you is, you have said repeatedly that the school system has enough money. And to be fair, the other 2 candidates have said they're not interested in raising the millage rate, that there's adequate funding. Is there adequate funding to do those smaller classes?
Yes.
Really?
So,
where does it come from?
Well, we start at 208 Bull Street.
Say that again.
208 Bull Street is our central office.
Okay.
I think we have too many positions there. We have a lot of assistants to the assistants to the assistants.
Wow.
I believe in more local control of schools. I believe that principals and teachers at those schools know their students better than central office does. And I believe that's where the money should go. I believe if we look at the budget, I believe you're going to find some waste. So I would do, before I would even think of, and I wouldn't think of, raising a millage rate, let's find where it is.
Okay, Roger, are you now, right now, calling for a forensic audit of expenses at the administration?
Yes.
Awesome.
What did you say? I didn't catch what you said.
I asked him, Sid, if he is calling for a forensic independent audit of expenditures.
When's the last time Chatham, Savannah's had that?
I don't think they ever have. Roger, do you know?
They have an audit. I wouldn't call it a forensic audit.
No, I mean, we had one at the county too, and the same firm did it for 30 years, and it was always perfect. We're talking about an independent outside.
Absolutely. Yeah. And before anyone, goes and says, there you go, Roger, being confrontational. No, I think one of the things I talk a lot about is transparency. We're spending a lot of the public's money The public has the right to know how that money is being managed. That's not being confrontational, because you know what? We may find out that everything is great, but the public needs to know from an independent source that this is correct.
So, and I agree with you that there needs to be more oversight. That's one of the problems with one of the criticisms of charter schools, private schools getting money from public schools, that there's not accountability like in the public schools, but you can get around that in the public schools too if you're not careful. So there's really needs to be somebody watching the store, managing the store, so to speak. It's one of my pet philosophies there. Don't run off and just let things go. But one of the things that we hear a lot about, and we see it, and it's very concerning to me, is that we're just seeing teachers leave the profession in droves.
Yes.
And the average life span or career span is like 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. And we're even at the point now where the legislature just passed that retired teachers can come back and teach at their level of income, won't go toward their retirement at all, but they're retired, they can come back and draw full income. Now, that's an incentive, but what's the bad side of that is if they're, these teachers, obviously, if they're retired, how long will that go? And if you're not ready to replenish them with new educators. And so the colleges of education are some of them are even closing in some of the universities. So what is your belief or your idea of how can we recruit and retain quality teachers in public schools, Savannah-Chatham? Is it Savannah-Chatham or Chatham-Savannah?
I know, right?
Same thing, I guess.
Some people call us the state of Chatham.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to what I said before about this whole culture thing. As it stands now, because I asked someone about this, I think the first time we hear from teachers that there's a problem is their exit interview. Yes, we can have mentors, we can have all of this, but there has to be a culture where teachers feel that they can freely, without retribution, share their struggles. And we've got to be more encouraging. I mean, we've got to praise. We've got to go be. I mean, I'm all about the teacher of the year. That's lovely. I'm all about the teacher of the week. But in every school, and this is also, I believe, a general attitude. We have to change our attitude toward teachers. It is a noble. It's not only noble; it's a great profession. Okay. Excuse me. Savannah-Chatham. But and I'm going to go back to something you said before about vocations and everything. I believe that starting in elementary school, children need to learn about every profession there is, and that every one of them is honorable. Every one of them should be treated with dignity. So that child that may want to be a welder, that's great. So let them meet a welder. That person, I mean, and that's just as honorable as being a doctor. But being a teacher, those little snide comments that people make, oh, well, they're a teacher because they couldn't do anything else. That's not true. I know some great teachers who could do anything. They chose to teach. And we've got to protect them. and that comes from I believe that comes from the top down. I think from the top down, we have to make our school system school system that teachers want to flock to teach in, because they're allowed to do what they're encouraged, they're supported.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When I should get it in. Sid, is now okay?
Yes,
Or
sir.
did you want? Well,
I'll come back.
Finish up.
Well,
okay.
When you were talking about the noble profession and keeping teachers, what we hear class sizes by all the surveys that I've seen across the NEA, some more recent ones that come. Burnout is it's the word now. There's always a buzzword every few years. Burnout is the word now, that because of all the excessive teaching, because of the discipline problems, because of the large classrooms and all the high stakes testing, and then relatively you see there's low on this
Oh, nice. Thank you.
lack of parental involvement. Of course, we know that in single parent homes are sometimes there's no parent at all. There's grandparents raising these kids, or someone else. But how do you engage them into the equation? Well, put it back up for just a second, and then you see the standardized testing, and something that I really believe in completely, and you hit on it. It's not just STEAM, but STEM, but STEAM. You need the arts and music and phys ed and all of that sort of thing. And like you say, vocational education, it should be that. And so getting good teachers, poverty and lack of school choice, those go down low on what teachers think. So, okay, now you can move it. So if you see the hierarchy there, what really concerns the practitioner,
so
do you feel that's pretty accurate? Or
I do. I will tell you, when it comes to parental involvement, this is what I've seen. I have seen when parents see a change in their child, they get more involved. I've seen it at a school where at the beginning of the school year, it was the usual, 5 parents at PTA meeting. But as soon as those kids, and as soon as you saw that difference in those kids, and based on virtues, based on high expectations, and those kids get enthused about school, those parents do get involved. The last time I went to a program at one school, it was packed. And these are the same parents people say don't get involved. Second part of that is schools have got to understand that these are working parents. And guess what? A working parent can't make a parent-teacher conference in the middle of the day. Absolutely. So we have to accommodate.
So how do you see that? How do you see that happening? How can you accommodate working parents tied up during the day, and they don't have the luxury of taking off a hour or whatever, or what have you?
And we have to meet them. Then we may need to have our parent-teacher conferences at a different time. It may be early in the morning before they go to work. It may be, a lot more after school. And but we have to do it because I think that will increase parents being involved. Because right now, they just, some of these parents just feel overwhelmed. But by being accommodating, and part of this being accommodating too is our communication with parents. And one thing I said I was a Libra. One thing we have to do is we have to send more notes to parents praising their children, so that when we do have to make that phone call about their children doing something negative, it's not as if it's the school against my child. That, and again, that's another reason.
Change. That's a cultural change of the school.
Yeah.
Well, you said you're a Libra, so am I, and I'm always looking for that perfect balance.
Yeah.
I've been looking for it for a long time. But it's a very delicate balance in it.
It is a very delicate balance.
So, John, what was it you wanted to throw in here?
Thank you, Sid. I'm not a Libra.
You're probably a Taurus.
I am.
I say I got you.
Got a birthday coming up in a couple weeks, as a matter of fact. Roger, your prescription, your views and philosophies and strategies are, they're Don Quixote-esque, if I can say that, because you're the lone guy right now who's advocating something pretty different philosophically. And I just want to know, let's say you got elected, and I have two questions. How can you, or how do you plan on sharing your vibe, your Quixote-esque vision with, and building a consensus on the school board for it? That's question one.
That was my next question. Go ahead.
Okay, and the next question is, assuming through your innate charm and perseverance, you're able to get that. How damn long, Roger, will it take, do you think, to manifest an obvious improvement? Not all the way, but significant improvement.
Okay. We'll start with the first one. My job as school board president, it is limited. The only thing I have absolute control over are committees, and my degree, by the way, is in interpersonal communications, which is with the emphasis on persuasion and group dynamics. I would start with a very intense board retreat, and I would bring an outside person in who could lead the board retreat, and it becomes a truth session where we say, this is reality, this is where we are. Now, this is where we need to be. And the only way we're going to get to where we need to be is we have to start with a basic mission that we will all agree on. And the mission is this: we will always put our students first. And we expect excellence from all of our children. Now, how do we get there? And it's going to be hard. And some fiefdoms may crumble. And part of it is because from this is where we give our marching orders to our superintendent. And this is where we are going to say, this is what you're accountable for. And by the way, that's the other thing that the board is responsible for, is keeping the superintendent accountable.
Okay, I'm going to repeat back, like in counseling or therapy here. What I'm hearing you say, Roger, is through your vision and commitments and skills, you feel you can bring a consensus through a retreat or more, whatever's necessary, to manifest what you're describing as a culture of excellence is the mission. Let's say all that happens. The second part of my question is, how long till we see meaningful results?
On the school culture part, I think we could see meaningful results in a year.
In just a year.
I mean, that's right, because school culture is school culture, and what we have right now is chaos. And you know, when you say this is the culture we want at every school, and how we measure that culture. Yes, go ahead.
One of the things that stood out to me, and it's something that you need to do, and something that is difficult, to do, is you have this plan. You see where you want to go. You got to figure out how to get there. You have a superintendent. You have staff, and through the accreditation umbrella, you've got restraints.
Oh yeah,
of micromanagement to a superintendent, and in case I mess up your world, and I've been there, done that, seen it.
Yes.
Not that I was involved in it, but
everyone knows. Everyone knows.
I had to be president of the local while that was going on, and it turned into a nightmare. So one of the things that I've seen, and John was hitting on this, how we're doing on time. We're okay on time.
I have 10 more minutes.
Okay. With boards of ed, and superintendents and teachers in general, there's a whole lot of ego going on. And so you have how many? 8 plus you, or 7? 8 plus you, right? 9. And you're at large, everybody else in district. So what I've often seen is like a 5-4,
right
that goes on this it's just back and forth and back and forth and back, and then finally
guys, can I pause for 1 minute?
All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Sid, I'm sorry if I'm shanghaiing most of the question time. I'll leave most of the time to you.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Oh, well, Roger needed to take a break for probably an important incoming call that he'd been waiting on or something. So we're just in idle mode right now.
Okay, so this can all be edited anyway, right?
Oh yeah,
it could just be personal respite too, but so big deal. Move on.
A biological break.
Age. We don't discriminate on age.
We all need
on this platform, evidenced by the multiple boomers president. No offense.
So, Chuck, I'm listening a lot.
Sure.
On this, can you hear me?
Yeah, I mean he's not back yet, but
okay. So, a lot of good answers.
Some, yeah, sure.
But how do you make that work? I guess that's always the $64,000.
That's what I want to finish with.
And that's where I was going. You've got a board of people that you got to make it one. You got to work with a superintendent. Yeah. And superintendents come in with a dream. Boards have a dream. They all have the thing. And so,
well, we shouldn't be afraid of 5-4 votes, Sid. In my mind,
I mean, we got them all the time at city council. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I'm a realist. I know that's going to happen.
Sure.
We'll welcome Roger.
See, when I was president of GAE, very rarely did I have divided board vote, and so I got spoiled with that. But sometimes it happened, and we had 20-some people on the board. So
we'll welcome Roger back into for the last 10 minutes of this interview.
Sorry about that, guys. So we can give the superintendent a vision. We can ask the superintendent to come back with a plan for that vision. And that is what we hold that superintendent accountable for. No, we cannot get into the weeds.
We're not going to be going into schools, sitting in classes. We're not going to spend board meetings saying, well, I heard that this teacher was doing this. That's not what we do.
Right.
But we do set a vision. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Sid's got some follow-up questions while you were taking a break.
Okay.
Sid?
Well, I was just asking, you were talking about making that work, and I was getting on it very often. It's a 5-4 kind of boat, and some say, well, that's fine. You're going to have a divided board as long as you get it, but that group can change all the time. And accreditation issues with micromanagement, that sort of. I think that's where we were when
right.
So how? And I know the retreats. Lord knows I've been to plenty of retreats, and we talk about all this stuff. But when you're dealing with human beings, there's always this thing that somebody, whether it's ego or whether it's just I want to be right, or somebody's out there putting things in people's ears or what have you. So as the president, I like the idea of at-large president. I've always advocated for that in every school district that ought to be chair, that person ought to be elected at large by people. A lot of folks don't agree with me on that, obviously, because it takes, the legislature has to do that, and the local board has to ask for it. So if they don't have it. So as someone that's going to be elected by all.
Correct.
If you're elected, will you look at that as a mandate to bring unity, or to manage, or to find what works and work with the superintendent to make sure it works? Or how do you see that?
Well, I don't see them mutually exclusive. Yes, of course I want unity. However, the most important thing is what's best for our children. And again, we have control of a few things: the budget and setting policy. And I know that sometimes some board members will want to go outside of that. And as school board president, I have to remind them that's not our purview. I know you'd love it to be your purview, but that's not our purview. And do I want to have a great relationship with the superintendent? Absolutely. I want the superintendent to succeed. But I also want the superintendent to understand that they're accountable to the board. They're accountable to our citizens.
Right. And that's, I think they know that, but sometimes it just depends where you go, who you're working with, and how all that plays out. And so it's, I've seen good, bad, and ugly in all those.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah. But Savannah's such a beautiful place, and it's got such potential, and it's all this growth going on there. I just hate the thought of public schools going to going away and everybody run into a private school or a private charter.
I don't want that to happen either. That's what we got to fix.
So we've got to convince folks that they're safe.
Correct.
That they're not people running around with guns in their pockets, and that they're safe from the outside influence during the day. Do you believe that's a high priority?
Oh, absolutely. If you talk to parents, safety is one of their main concerns.
Well, Roger, what is the misunderstanding about charter schools? I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but that seems to be one of the central touch points of this campaign between you and the two others. Where is the public misunderstanding charter schools? You have said charter schools are public schools. Charter schools are public schools. Where are they getting it wrong, Roger?
Okay, so
I answered your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Charter schools are public schools. You know, and there is accountability for charter schools, by the way. The difference between charter schools and other public schools is charter schools can and will be shut down. If charter schools do not perform academically or fiscally, they can be shut down. You can have low-performing regular public schools that will stay open forever. Charter schools can and will be shut down. I will tell you my philosophy on charter schools, and as I told you before, the reason that I got involved with charter schools was to provide an option for parents who feel that they don't have a voice and don't have options. And as I said before, and here's the big misunderstanding about being charter schools. My goal is not to turn Chatham County into a bunch of charter schools. My goal is to bring Chatham County to the point where we don't need charter schools.
Interesting.
Do you mind if I want to ask a follow-up question, because I love that we're ending this interview kind of where it began with the issue of charter schools. You know, John said at the top, you know, he labeled you as Mr. Charter School, and in the next, I said that. Adam Van Berman said that. Yes, yeah. John didn't say that. I said you said. Adam said that. John.
He said it, but he didn't say you meant it.
So in the next week, we're gonna have campaign disclosures come out for all major candidates. And recently here in Savannah, you know, this flyer kind of made a bunch of rounds, you know, on the social media. And I'm not going to ask you to comment specifically on a candidate outside of your race, obviously. But I think, as I've told you before, I think the issue is not so much your history with charter schools. I think it's affiliation with those who may have a more aggressive agenda in this area than you yourself do, right? So when people get a chance to look at your campaign disclosures, you know, are they going to see, you know, kind of a collective group of, you know, people you've worked with in the past in the charter school movement? You know, it's not like I expect Betsy DeVos to have donated to you personally, but that's the perception, though, Roger. I'm not saying that this is the reality. I just want you to give you a chance to just address this perception of those who think that you're just a face for a hardcore charter movement. Because your answers today don't really convince me that you are, but the affiliation is the question that people want to answer.
So let me put it to you like this. They didn't bring me to charter schools. I brought them to charter schools. Yes, there are some people on the list that have contributed to charter schools, but there are over 200 donors on my list who have donated everything from $25 to the max, and a lot of in between. So don't expect, you know, no, Betsy DeVos is not on my list. And also I have eschewed endorsements. This is a nonpartisan race, and I'm planning on keeping it that way.
I have a question real quick before we.
Yes.
So he's only got like 60 seconds, Sid, so you're gonna get it in quick.
It's all good.
For-profit charters, yes or no?
No. Everything I've been involved, it's always nonprofit. And in fact, in the state of Georgia, I don't even know if they're allowed in the state of Georgia.
Okay. Well, I can see we've got a minute left. I can't thank you enough, Roger, for coming in, and I hope you enjoyed the
I did.
leisurely, you know, no time constraints here. We get to know you and dig a little deeper into the subjects. So,
Love it.
Well,
yeah.
I gave him a lot to answer, and it took him a while to answer it. So he did, you have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, Sid, I appreciate you.
Thank you. And
I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much.
And good luck to all the candidates.
Yes, let me continue my tour.
Please do. If you want to just give some, I've got your website scrolling across the bottom. I'll make sure on all the podcast apps that it's on the description of the show. But if you'd like to just give any other ending thoughts or how to contact you or get involved with your campaign,
just go to my website and it's so funny. If you call my phone and I don't answer, my voicemail has not changed for 21 years, and I end with "Dream big," and that's what I believe, and that's what we're going to do in Chatham County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Roger. Well, let's put this back. Before we end, I just want to stop again and thank Dr. Sid Chapman, former president of the GAE, Georgia Association of Educators, both in our members only show where you kind of prep John and I on a lot of the issues, and in this interview and the last interview you and I conducted with Todd Rhodes. I think you've been an invaluable addition, and we like to try and do this in areas. John, you'll recall we brought in kind of some experts on the district attorney's race in 2020 because,
sure. Absolutely.
As I like to say, I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on Facebook. So, it's
I've been playing one for a long time.
I hear you, Sammy. Anytime we're kind of out of our depth completely on a specific issue, we do try to bring in some subject matter experts. And, I hope that this experience has given you the fire again, Sid, and maybe we'll see you on a ballot again sometime soon.
You never know. But I really have enjoyed this. I'd love to get more of this sort of thing. The good thing about these kind of platforms, you don't have to leave home. So
absolutely. No, I love it. I think it's permanent here to stay. I wonder if the Democratic primary for state school superintendent will go to a runoff. And if it does, John is going on vacation. So he won't be here for a good bit of the runoff, but we'll have R.G. Bryant, who ran for Public Service Commission a couple of years ago. He's going to fill in, and we if we have a runoff for state superintendent, it's probably going to be between Dr. Jaha Howard and Alicia Thomas Searcy, and then I think that would be a fascinating debate continuing this issue, especially if Roger is in a runoff.
What if we have a runoff here?
So Sid, it might not be over. I might be Facebook messaging you in 5.5 weeks.
I know them both very well, but let me tell you, GAE did not endorse anyone in the Democratic group for state.
I know.
And on the Republican side, they went with Woods.
Well, the incumbent,
I wasn't in on that decision or anything.
Sure,
but I thought it was interesting.
Well, you can always, when you come on, you can make it known that you're speaking for yourself and not GAE. But obviously, your experience is invaluable, and with all due respect, it's authoritative in my opinion. So I said, to all the candidates, I thought you're probably one of the 5 or 10 foremost, public education people in this state. So, it would be fascinating to have you in on these discussions.
Well, I need you as
might have you back.
Person.
Again, I did my time inside the party, and the thing about local politics I've learned is that it's not really as effective on a partisan basis as, say, state or federal politics are, right? Federal politics and state politics are pretty much driven by party, and the local issues here, there's cross currents, and so I kind of just decided to work in that lane.
I really believe, and I had people disagree with me, that the state school superintendent position ought to be nonpartisan. I really believe if it were nonpartisan, I'd probably be sitting up there right now.
You're probably right. The GAE experience enough probably would have rolled you over without the D on it. You're correct. Let me tell you why I know you're right. Is because in 2014, Valerie Wilson did better than Jason Carter, the grandson of the former president and governor of Georgia. Yeah. She did better proportionately in that run for state school superintendent. It's a very valid point. Perhaps once the Republicans start losing statewide, they'll start to look to make things nonpartisan as a way to get back in the game.
Neither party's
right?
going to give up power easily, so
that doesn't. John, any closing thoughts on these? This was a 3-part series of episodes, 80, 82, 83, and 84. We've always called this the third rail. What are your closing thoughts on these 3 interviews?
Well, I've enjoyed participating in 2 of them and watching all 3 of them. I think we've been blessed to have Sid's wealth of knowledge to help make this a meaningful discussion. I was really impressed with the Coco Pappy panel. I caught 20-30 minutes of that. I thought, there's a new standard, it seems like, kind of evolved out of the COVID thing when, we couldn't meet in person, and we're getting better material, more insight, and hopefully those will be tools to help voters make the very best choices. So that's my hope.
Absolutely. Well, thanks you guys for joining us. We'll be back next week. We've got to talk about these donor reports coming up. I think we got to spend some time next week.
Balance it out, folks. Use your.
Okay, Mr. Libra.
Oh, I know, right?
Thank you, Sid.
All in balance. Thanks, Sid. Thanks, John. Join us next week, everybody.
All right. Thank you all.
Don't you think it's time for the city of Savannah to have an honest tourism management plan? Let SCAD start paying its fair share? And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages? The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can, $5, $10, or $20, by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.